Right, I reckon that's half past on there. So thank you very much indeed for coming along to the last meeting of the year. Very much the last meeting of the year. Hopefully we can rush through things. Apologies for absence.
I've had apologies for Councillor Fuller, Councillor Dubois, Councillor King, Councillor Rycold, and our ward councillor Harris.
We're happy to accept all of those. There's lots of illness and they're all good reasons. But same as the last meeting. Good, thank you very much. We'll crack on. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest from anyone, pecuniary or otherwise? If not, we can obviously raise them as we get to the agenda item. And we can touch on it when we look at the code of conduct later on. Minutes of the previous meeting, which I have to sign in front of me. Any points to be raised from any of those? There's quite a few things that were raised that are coming back up tonight, including Fletfield, which we can discuss. Can I get someone to propose? I'm hoping Val's straight in, be seconded and signed. Luke, thank you very much. We're all happy that I signed those. Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Do that now. Lovely, thank you very much. Public participation, not yet, and consideration of requests from interested parties. If everyone's okay, I'm going to nudge the agenda around a little bit. Well, sorry, let's get the North Northampton. We've got apologies from Helen, but nothing to report from her. So we'll go through 2199, and then town matters. We can bring the item on Fletfield Association up one, then Paul can answer any questions we have, and he can go home, and we can crack on with the other stuff. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Yes. Lovely. So 21-102 to consider the proposed business plan from Fletfield Association and consider further action, including supporting FFA as our managing body in the process. Does anyone have any questions after looking through the tone? I suppose Val and I saw Paul the other week when he was talking through it and raised a couple of questions which have now been embodied in it. Thank you, Paul, for all of your work on behalf of the town. Jerry has worked hard, but he's not here, so we can't thank him. But he's watching at home. And yeah, any other questions? Fantastic. I think our general view then is if we're willing to say thank you very much indeed, FFA, for all your work, and that we are happy to support in principle everything you said in there, including the idea that you would manage the field in a negotiated settlement with NNC for the first few years, and then we'll support you in that. That's great. You've asked about us giving a letter saying that we're happy. Does it need to be?
Yeah, I just
a couple of lines, or?
What we've been asking for from all our community groups really is that they, if they feel they're able, to write a letter of support, just to say, you know, today I'm going to take away that you guys are in support of what we're doing. I think also from our perspective, the key thing was if NNC do give it to, well, we would like it to be given to OGC, for us to act as a management team, and it will come under your insurance, which is what we would hope would happen. What an alternative arrangements could be that it would be given to a trust. And what we will propose though is that it will come under your auspices. Then if something were to happen to FFA, then you guys would clearly have a role in trying to sort out an alternate management body. I'm not saying that will happen, but it's just a case of longevity, making sure
You promise it will, so really.
yeah. I think Councillor King, I had a conversation with Councillor King a while back now, you know, how he thought it would be best managed. So I guess it's perhaps just to reaffirm that in any letter that you is write to us to say that yes, the council is fully supportive of the plan, and we anticipate should we be granted it that, you know, you would it will come under your direct auspices from an insurance perspective, but you would appoint us as management based on the plan that we've proposed.
Well, I just wonder whether we should check with our insurance people first. It's a big commitment, and there are rules about councils running kind of secondary.
And it all depends on NNC, doesn't it? So I suppose if we settle in the letter that we're happy to support your plan in principle,
We should.
that's a good starting point. And then let's see where NNC.
Yeah, I think there's clearly going to be some discussions about, I think,
There
with
would have to be.
NNC about what and how and where. I mean, as I said in the meeting, there's also a possibility they might reject our proposal. But, we're hoping this gives us a really good chance.
David,
Well, it was just striking me that in Blackpool we have an agreement between Parish Council and the Playing Fields Association, which the Playing Fields Association operate the play area. I was thinking that this sounds somewhat similar, so maybe that we could look at that agreement.
do you know anybody on the Blackpool Parish Council?
I think
Dig around.
there may be a couple of people not so very far from you who may have some access to it.
Maybe you've written it, you mean?
Oh,
Do you insure the parish council insure the playing field? So that would be the same
It's a
as
slightly complicated arrangement.
It is,
There are some
that's-
things
that's
that we
what I-
insure and there are some
Yeah.
aspects where the liability is with them.
but for the first short term, the idea, as I remember it from the plan, is that NNC are going to deal with you, sort of thing, and we're in the back. So
Well, I think how we envisaged it is that, if they say they are to grant it, if they granted it, it would be granted to Handle Town Council. So you would take ownership,
it would become our asset.
and we would act as the appointed management body for the field, but you would appoint us to manage it.
but it will depend on that grant from them.
Yeah.
So,
Or alternatively, there may well be, that what we've also proposed in the plan is that if NNC were unhappy with just saying, okay, there you are, OTC, over to you, then an alternative arrangement might be that we would lease it on a peppercorn rent for the first 5 years. But equally, that peppercorn rent, the agreement would be with OTC, not with Flattened Field Association. But Flattened Field Association would still be appointed as the management committee on behalf of OTC, and we would have a representation from OTC, which at the moment is obviously Jerry, and as long as he is a councillor and is prepared to take that on, then that's great. Or if you wanted someone else, then that'll be up to you.
yeah, but I think as to where we are at the moment, that's the plan looks good. And yeah, we have to support the principle of it. Marvellous. Do we need to? We're all nodding in agreement. Do we need to do anything with that? Do we need to?
I mean, you can formally propose and second it, or you can just say you all agree to.
I'm happy to propose it formally, just so it's got some rubber stamp on it. David's happy to second it. We're all happy to approve it. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Or you are free to go.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much indeed for stepping in at short notice.
I don't need to get the down.
No, that is process.
There, just leave much up over it. You would forget
Talking
it.
of insurance. Okay, so again, one more backup, 21-100-01, further information on bleed control kits. We discussed this last time, and I think I suggested let's see what first responders thought. And first responders have given a very full set of answers, although I thought they would. Generally,
Can I?
please do.
Sorry, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Being polite.
Yes, I can. Yeah, generally supportive. The interesting one for me was saying that quite a lot of what's in the kit should only be used by trained people, including the magic gauze made of oysters and mussel shell, whatever it is. But the general view seemed to be that it's better to have it somewhere than not have it somewhere else. I did a quick check. I think we've got 5 AEDs around the place.
And potentially one at the George, because they are looking at putting one up there as well.
Of the ones, we've got one at the surgery, one at Picarthy, Jones Strong Centre, QBH and Co-op. I suppose, I think it was suggested last time we maybe looked at phasing this 1 year, 2 years, something like that. I thought the QBH and Co-op seem the most central locations with as the first responders say, whether it's a stab or a bus hitting you or something where there's a lot of relief, probably more likely.
Yeah.
Where there are a lot of people in town. So I suppose the answer is, do we go for 1? Do we go for 2? Is anyone against such things?
I'm not entirely convinced of the argument.
Mhm.
I feel that Annabelle isn't a town which is a very long way, well, it's rarely, it seems to be a long way from an ambulance or a first responder, and that's what most of us would rely on.
I think we can be at least half an hour broken. I've certainly stayed on rugby pitches with broken legs for
Yes.
30, 40, 50 minutes.
They're not getting any faster, are they, as well?
But would they if you're bleeding to death?
Not-
Not bleeding to death.
No.
If they're all used, if they're not, they've got, they're holding patients who haven't got beds, they're queuing up with them in car parks. I'd say, I would go for the full number that we could go for. I think they're things that we could be proud to have as a community, belts and braces and all the rest of it. And I think the document rightly put forward that it's not stabbings, is it? It's like you said, people having unfortunate accidents that you don't expect with vehicles or whatever else. And I think we'd rue the day, wouldn't we, if something happens, we wish we bought those bleeding control kits. So I would support getting 2.
Jamie, any thoughts?
Very similar, Councillor Jones, not much to add. I would say location though. Would it not be better maybe? I actually was trying to think of somewhere it could go, but like right in the middle of the market square, just because that seems to be the most people orientated.
Probably is, but then I think having them where the AEDs are, when you phone 999, that's what they send you. So I had a casualty I found a couple of months ago, late at night, and they were straight on. They knew where the phone was coming from, and they said, go to Picarthy and get the AED.
Okay.
This was at midnight, and we didn't need it in the end. But so, it's that they can say go somewhere, and when you're on the phone, they say open whichever box. I suppose having an extra location might confuse. So maybe the Co-op's the most sensible one. I don't know. Al?
Yeah, I'm not massively convinced that it's something we need, because on the whole, you're a long way, wherever you are in the town, you're going to be quite a long way from the box. But if we decide that's what we really need, I would have said the marketplace would be the only obvious place. People coming out the pub, fighting, people falling, not necessarily. I mean, we've had a few bad falls in the marketplace because the pavements are so irregular. And we get elderly. I mean, there was a fall outside the chemist not very long ago. That's my only comment, really. I can't think that anywhere further out would be of any help to most people.
So, David?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I would have initiated it in the sense that it hadn't struck me that it was something we were short of.
Yeah.
But I do take on Councillor Jones' point that if something now happens and we are aware of it and we haven't done anything about it, we're going to feel bad about it. But in terms of locations, on one level, the co-op is just a little bit away from the centre, isn't it? Not massively. But maybe the more obvious two locations are actually the two pubs. Because you've got one right in the middle of the marketplace and you've got the other one on West Street.
If we've got an AED,
So is there anything sort of near the George area at all?
at the moment,
Yeah,
No.
right.
but they're going to put an AED maybe
Mm.
on the George. I mean, we've got an AED on the QBH. Getting another box on the QBH wouldn't be difficult
No.
in terms of landlords, would it? I would have thought.
No.
Yeah, and in fact, people know that that's there,
And
But I would
then-
assume-
where they might
This-
go to look for one.
Yeah, but this would be the same, that you would have to have some sort of power supply, wouldn't you? So, you know, because of the security on it.
I don't know. Because the power supply for the AED is for the AED to recharge.
I mean, there's one in the co-op, that they've got on the wall of the co-op.
Yeah.
Other co-op.
I mean, I think that those two locations are good because you're covering,
There is, yeah.
The whole
yeah,
of
there is
that
enough
area.
distance.
you're not very
So
far.
car park's a good place for a car accident. Have a car accident.
Chucking it from the middle.
I mean, is it worth? I mean, I was a skeptic when they first came out, and the first responders are quite keen, so I think that's probably fair enough. And certainly, having had this incident a few months ago, I'm now much more aware of the unexpected happening as it does. I've certainly seen people, I've treated people who've been hit by buses in the marketplace. I do wonder sometimes we find the reason for these accidents happen around. You know, is it worth maybe going back, because I think the £500 price tag is pricey. Is it worth going back to see if there's a simpler version with just tourniquet and so on? Was this advised by the police?
Police, yeah.
Yeah. If they put a, because then we could put two lesser versions somewhere.
I mean, I would imagine that if there was a cheaper option, they would have told us about that, and they would have,
It was the stabbing, this cyto causes the stabbing, and it's going to be really pushed into the wound.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to propose.
I mean, is,
to go to-
one question I have is it, so with, at least with the defibrillator, the vast majority of people know exactly what it is and what it's for. Is there a, I don't know if you know the answer, but with this, is there a similar holding mechanism for it?
There's a box, and I think there's a code on it, when I remember on the picture. The thing about the code on the AED is that you get on the phone to the ambulance, they direct you to it, they tell you the code.
Right.
And they keep you on the phone while they're using it. And I think my first training on this cytochrome stuff was earlier in the year, and that seemed to be the way they were suggesting it would be used.
Right,
So
so-
if it was a big bleed, you'd be told to go and get it.
So it's kind of, it's obvious that it's not a glorified first aid box or something.
No.
It's serious
yeah.
Yeah.
stuff.
I think so.
Okay.
So, do we think maybe one this year, one next year? Go QBH
The
first?
answer to not put anybody off, basically, no one can use them
Well, I can.
unless they're trained.
I'm trained. It's really easy. The tourniquet
Well, you're
training is
one
easy.
person, Ian.
Well, no, there's a lot of people in town. I've been on courses with 30 or 40 people on them. So, again, I think I've done first aid training for 30 years, and the tourniquets until last year were not part of the training course. And they've now come into every training course as standard.
But I
Because-
assume that you would, if it's going to be the same as the defibrillators, you would have,
They'll tell you
training.
on the phone.
whilst they're on the phone, they'll be telling you what to do.
Yeah, I
They
was,
can't,
And
that's
what-
what they say.
No, but what they'll also do is they'll tell you to get your belt off and put it around whatever it is to stop the bleeding. And it's, I was certainly very impressed when I last saw a tourniquet like this operating. It was very simple and it was effectively foolproof. Whereas 10 years ago, tourniquets that we used weren't like that. Is it worth getting one on the
Yes, thinking about it, the marketplace is where we have the fairs and things, isn't it?
Mhm.
Which is another possible venue for something happening. trying to work out where the suitable place would be.
If you think how highways assess the risk, we were discussing at Glatthorne yet again, another accident on the crossroads between Glatthorne, I don't know if it's Glatthorne or Benford, no, it's Benford Road or
It was
Glatthorne, and there's been one at the other
Across the
end.
stock,
Yeah,
The
that
both
is the
ends
one
of it.
there.
recently.
And highways assess that as being, live with it,
just being,
live with it.
yeah,
Their assessment of that risk is, well, people may die, but basically they can live with that. You can mitigate risk and mitigate risk and mitigate risk all the time, and it'll cost you more and more. And there is a move, politically speaking, by the government to pass down as many costs as they dare, whether stealthily or openly, to parish councils who can raise the precept. It's just another cost being passed down to parish councils on their precept.
I think this has come particularly after the stabbings in Kettering and Corby, hasn't it? That's why Northampton Police are on this, because in both cases they are avoidable.
Yeah, that changes the complexion of it, doesn't it?
You can see I'm going to vote against it.
Yep.
And it's going to carry because you're all for it, that's fine. But I
I'm not
object on
necessarily,
quite a few levels.
I wasn't for it until I read what the first responders, because they know more
That
about
actually
it.
put me off, you see.
Okay.
Yeah, I found it unconvincing.
But I mean, you probably, when defibrillators were
Mm.
being suggested, people might have had these same conversations.
Very much.
And until they're there, and then all of a sudden you need it.
Yeah.
And then people don't look back. So I think it's progress, and I think if you can, save somebody's life.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one's the way to go at the moment.
Mm.
How do we go on to bleedingkits.com and they send it, we fix it? Or
I don't know,
police advise us?
I will go back to the police constable or whoever it was. It was the email that came through to Lisa.
Yeah.
Just go back to them and then speak to them about it.
Okay. So are we happy if we go back to them and say, look, we're probably going to have to put one up, probably on
At the
the
QVH.
edge, because we own it, and let's see what they come back with. Are we all happy with that as a compromise?
nobody's looking enthusiastic, are they?
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, right.
I'm quite
Certainly, when I saw someone hit by the window of an expo, I wouldn't have used toilet paper, but I would have liked to have some. I mean, boringly, I have a first aid kit manager rucksack, so I had something. But 9 times out of 10, you would want something to stop the bleeding. And certainly this incident down the road in September, having someone to go and get what they could have done was something. And it keeps bystanders busy, which is always good as well. So, so we're happy to go back to them and say, let's.
You're going to install one, when you
Well, I'm
go.
happy, maybe they come back with what they think about that as a location,
Mhm.
then we can confirm it. Is that fair?
That's good.
So we not
So is
actually
it
decided
again?
Well, at the moment, we've had an email, which is pretty broad, and they might say that's not a great location for whatever reasons.
Yeah, but you can still approve whether you want to buy it or
Okay.
not.
Well,
Because otherwise we'll be coming back to this, keep
Okay.
coming backwards and
well, I'm
forwards.
happy to propose that we have one on QVH. Is anyone want to second that? Okay. Those 4?
I'll vote for it. It's
Thank you
hard.
very much.
It's a
Yeah.
hard vote.
Those against? Any abstentions, really? Thank you very much. To receive an update from the Jubilee Working Party. No one from the Jubilee Working Party is here, so that's hard. General view, I was going to raise a question as to whether it was a bit complicated. It sounds, I suppose I'm thinking about would I want to go the answer is not to the whole thing. I don't want to traipse around town from A to B to C to D. And particularly at the end of a half term, is it a 4-day bank holiday?
Yeah,
So lots
Thursday,
of-
Friday,
yeah,
Saturday,
lots of
Sunday.
people might have gone away, so the target audience, I think, quite small. So I was going to suggest, but there's no one here to receive my question, that maybe we, at the moment, we really focused on the Fletton Field end of it as a ambition, and then see what came elsewhere. And we've approved, hopefully, a healthy subsidy in the budget, not quite up to what maybe the ambitions are, but I think we're looking at 10,000 for the budget, and that seems pretty healthy. And if we focus out on a really good event on Fletton Field, if we're allowed to do it there, that seemed a bold idea, but.
I like the sports day though.
Sorry?
I like the sports day. No,
The
that's
sports day is a
separate
good
day.
idea, but I think when they tried to do one on
It's on Friday.
19, the Peace Games, that didn't work at all. No, exactly. No one,
I don't know.
they cancelled it, or there were about 8 people.
Ah.
So I suppose also that might be a great opportunity to work with the sports clubs and say, do you want to put something on the third and we support it, whatever, rather than running our own sports thing. But, and again, I'd imagine it's mainly aimed at families. They aren't going to sports day and competing. But if families are away over half term, then they might be limited. So, any other thoughts on Jubilee?
I think that is an excellent question, Ian, as to whether it is overly complicated, perhaps or overly ambitious, whatever we might describe it as, and to trim it down to more focus. Because we've already, I think at the finance group, we agreed deposit on the big screen TV, which is going to be at Fletton Field. So already we kind of pointed that Fletton, given we can use Fletton Field, Fletton Field will be the focus. It's tremendously ambitious to put it through the whole town. Tremendously.
It'll filter itself to some extent.
I'm
There's
sure.
always one or two things that can't happen for some reason.
Yeah.
And it might be that,
What do you think? Because obviously there's a market, there's the thought of having trestle tables out down in the town. I'm just thinking, if you're thinking that shouldn't happen, then.
I suppose I'm not thinking it shouldn't happen, I'm thinking we need to be convinced.
But we need to start, like Lisa's already put in for road closures and things, we need to start as of January. We'll be working hard at getting that market, but what I don't want to do is us really work hard and get this all sorted, and then another month down the line, we decide that we're not going to do that. I think if we're going to make that decision to just concentrate on Fletton Field, then we really should make that so that we all know what we're doing.
Where's the market bit?
It's up here somewhere else. I think if we're saying that we think the plan from Fletton Field Association to have Fletton Field as open space for the town is a good idea, then that's, of the two, that's the more important.
Yeah.
Particularly because 2 weeks after this, the food festival might be in the centre of town, etc., etc. So,
Yeah.
a little focus. But then, the group aren't here to defend their ideas. They have very good reasons why that's the case. But it looks very ambitious to me. You worry that maybe with the half-term week being as it is, there won't be happening people around.
So I would like to say that we need a presentation from the Jubilee Working Group at the next full council. They can't all absent themselves and not be here to answer questions on that.
Understand?
It's a lot of money, a huge amount of effort is going to be required from the staff. And I think that I would like to assure myself that it's going to work, really.
Well, on that basis, should we say that until we're convinced about the whole panoply of it, we don't put the staff effort into it?
I think so, I do.
I agree, because we're,
We're all happy with that?
concerned about it.
Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah, so we'll just say that until we're convinced.
Yeah.
we.
And if they want to do it as a presentation on another evening, I'm happy to come to that rather than do it at the council. I don't mind what that format is.
Good reason with the present situation, I think.
There is a meeting on the 10th of January, so I mean, I would imagine that we'll let them know before then, but at that meeting they can decide
Okay, then.
what presentation, yes, and then
Yeah.
come back to the council.
What we sometimes do is ask people if they're going to make a presentation to come at 7 o'clock. We'll have half an hour before the meeting starts to do things like that. Otherwise, you end up
Yeah,
spending 40 minutes in a meeting.
Yeah. And then if other people aren't as inconvenient, it's up to you with someone on really, because that wouldn't be a summons, but.
Exactly.
So our next meeting is the 21st of January, 19th, 18th of January. There's a QBH meeting before it. That's from 6:30, 5.
There's not QVH in January, is there?
Isn't that?
No, not one scheduled.
What date in January?
Ask them to come for 7 o'clock that evening.
Did you say the 18th?
18th, yeah. Unless I've written it down wrong, but that's what it looks like from here. Rightio, moving on. Receive an update on the proposed transport study. This is Councillor King, he's right here. He has said that we've now had back from TPP, whatever they're called, T Transport, whoever did the last one. And they've given us a thing which I've seen and we've raised a question about, and in the new year we'll talk to them, but it's ongoing. And the costs we were talking about will cover what we're after. So hopefully in January we'll get some more details. But they've only just come out of that in the last week or so, I think. Council matters, mayor's report. Yeah, lots of exciting things, lots of things cancelled. But there we go. Some really interesting things. The highlight, I think, of what I've seen is going down to the scouts. I had no idea quite how busy and big it all was, and how they used all of that space down there, including the long-term car park for all the parking. That's some very positive stuff. Thank you to those who did the farmers one, in particular. We've already had some paint put on the pedestrian crossing out there. I'm not sure it was connected, but it feels like it might have been, so I'm very excited by that. Yeah, and we've had lots of chats with people about phones and IT systems and stuff, which will be good for next year. Any questions on anything there? It's not particularly exciting. I had a really interesting meeting with the Mayor of Clapton, seeing how they do things, and that was really innovative and interesting. And hopefully we're going to meet lots of other people tonight, but it didn't happen. So Mr. Omni has said no. Clerk report, anything?
Actually, Emma, could you record our thanks to Ian for taking so much trouble to arrange all those things? Yeah, thank you very much.
I don't know, it's going to be my first night out for a while. Accountant says I have another one.
You're trying though, you're trying.
Trying. That's the thought that counts. That's what we came to everyone at Christmas. Class report, Emma, you've been doing lots of things. I'm circled on here. I know I sent Rebecca lots of emails saying, could you, etc. I want to formally say thank you to her for being very patient and saying, yes, I'll do that, Ian, thank you. But I think the communications, it's going to be, I spend a lot of time sitting at the bike shed in Waitrose looking at the notice board, and people just think I'm a little bit strange. But I watch the whole cycle go around, you sit there, it's really quite interesting. Come and look, but then no one does. But so thank you to Rebecca for what she's done, as well as everyone else, obviously.
Yeah.
Anything else you need to flag up from
No, I
that?
don't think so, no.
Brilliant, thank you very much indeed. A letter from a resident regarding concerns on infrastructure. This is the one about surgery and provision for the elderly. Struck a chord, I think. There's a lot of conversation going on about COVID boosters. Capson's got walking clinics the last 2 weeks, and we're still waiting for news, I think, about when Stangram might be open. Does anyone have any thoughts at all on what was said and what we can do with it.
Duly noted, I think. I
Yes.
don't think they're telling us probably anything we don't know.
That's been like this for, it's a record that goes round and round and round non-stop.
Yes.
If only we could, yeah.
I think they made so many good points, especially about the surgery and just the unwieldiness of it when you're trying to make an appointment. When people end up in tears, they just can't seem to get an appointment. They say call back. They call back and they say you should have called earlier, or something like that. It's bad, yeah, and it's not doing what it should do.
One thing I read with interest when the stuff for the Stoke Royal Road application came in, I was reading it, and I noticed that there were 2 responses to the planning application from 2 different CCGs, the Clinical Commissioning Group, both of responding on behalf of animal surgery. One from Cambridgeshire, which is the North, and one from Neam, which is the Northamptonshire one.
Yeah.
And I thought, I know Animal sits in the middle of those 2. It's on the edge of Cambridgeshire, but to have both CCGs explaining how Animal was going to be hit by this seemed broadly interesting. I wrote it down. The Neam one said that the surgery is already at full capacity, and Cambridgeshire said it does not have the capacity and it's unsustainable. We thought if the CCGs who both claim to be running it both say it's full, the thought of how it's going to deal with housing is.
You should have a second surgery.
I think, as I understand it, we don't have the numbers, which is weird, given the CCGs say full capacity and unsustainable.
There's only one in Stamford, remember?
Is there any?
Yeah,
They closed, Lakeside took it over, they closed one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's looking at it brutally, maybe there's more to it, but that is basically what happened. One cemetery in Stamford.
David.
Could we pass that on to our unitary councillors?
Yeah, I was going to suggest a stage further, actually. I was going to suggest, would it be worth us sending a copy to, I think he's now the CEO of Lakeside, who lives in Albion, and copying it to a unitary councillor saying, is it worth having a chat? Because it's not so much where we are now, it's how things are going to be. And with 600 houses or whatever coming to Albion, lots more families, it's not going to get better.
No.
And again, I'm no expert, my understanding of the planning stuff is that the money that will come with the extra houses will allow for buildings. But there's not a lot of room to build over there, and it seems to be people working for children, particularly with retirements and stuff. Is there any merit in that? So,
Absolutely. Yes.
So who did you say the first person to?
the CEO, Mike Richardson. I'm happy to draft something and send it to you if that's okay. And we just send it to the council so they know what's what. And attach that letter to it. Just ask for comment and see if we can maybe have a chat. That seems a constructive way forward.
I'm glad to see that volunteer action got a bit of praise in it. You didn't write it, did you?
Okay, thank you very much. To receive the insurance schedule for the next year. I started reading it and I realised it was very long. And I did read it because I like the insurance schedule. But yeah, I was amazed that the courthouse had a greater insurable value than anything else. It was amazing. Any
The rental
questions?
value of it, yeah.
Yeah. Any questions about all
Just
700
the,
pages?
yeah, just the doors and windows, whether we're compliant.
I saw that. I thought,
Yeah, we had that looked at last year.
And we've got, I was going to ask about the event cover, but we've got that in all the sections, 15 million.
Yeah, I've spoken to our broker and I've had a series of questions to answer. I've answered what I can at the moment for the Jubilee, and she's forwarded that on to the insurance company.
We just need to receive that.
Yeah.
That's it. It all looked very insurable, very good. To consider adopting the new code of conduct as endorsed by NCAL and adopted by NNC. This is the one that looks like it's pretty straightforward. I suppose the only thing that struck me is this GDPR section, I think it's section 4, and it's sort of saying, you know, just be careful who you talk about, what, etc., and protect stuff, which is very relevant today. Do we need to formally adopt it?
Yeah, if you want to. Yeah.
Is anyone against adopting it?
But if we do that, are we binding everybody else to it?
Yeah, if you adopt it formally as council, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's not a signature document that you all sign individually.
Yeah. I just think it's worth pointing out to all those councillors
Mhm.
who aren't
Yeah.
here today.
Well, I mean, I know everybody's had a copy of it,
I know.
but I'll send it out again and say
If
you've
we
now
adopt it,
formally,
we adopt it.
and I'll also let NNC know that we've formally adopted it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue against any of them really.
Yes.
Well, to act dishonestly or whatever happens to me, so. I'm happy to propose that we adopt it. Everyone's happy, Val, second, we happy to vote on that? Thank you very much indeed. To consider whether to go ahead to weekly market on Thursday, the 2nd of June, as it is a bank holiday on the Platinum Jubilee.
Yeah, I mean,
It's been raised by a market.
Yeah, it's just, one of the market stall holders just said, are you going to hold the market because it's on a bank holiday? Obviously, we've never had a bank holiday on a Thursday, so this is new. I personally don't see any reason why not.
I thought you bought your tomatoes the previous
Yeah.
Thursday.
It's
You like-
something for people to come and do,
Yeah.
advertise it well, and then
Yeah.
We've got more people who are off work, normally at work,
Mm.
who might go in
Yeah.
and think, gosh, Hamilton's got a really good market.
Yeah.
So I think, yes.
yeah.
It's worth, what would the stallholder holders want?
I suppose they'll either tell us or they won't.
Yeah.
Well, they turn up or they won't.
That's what they do anyway,
But
so.
they're only fees, so.
So I think, you know, there's
I'm-
nothing
yeah.
to lose by having it.
No.
I mean, obviously, if we go back to them and say, yes, it's going to happen on this day, and they'll come back and say, well, I'm not coming,
Yeah.
then we'll look at it. But I don't think they will. I can't imagine that they will.
Brilliant. Next one, 21-101-07, receive an update on skate park and agree plan and proposal to go to tender. We had a meeting back in November, which came up with this consultation group, who came up with the little diagram that's on there. It's just an idea at the moment. But the advice we had from the people who put skate parks in Salisbury and elsewhere, and I've now seen in action in a few places, is that this is the way you do a skate park now. Apparently you sort of put out a tender to people who might be interested, and there are probably 4 or 5 companies, and see what they come back with, and get them to talk to the users, get the design better, and they all feed off the ideas, etc. I was talking to a couple of them today, and then you end up having a more formal tender process saying, right, here's what we want, what are you going to do with it? And it seems sensible to send this out as soon as possible. It comes from an exemplar that we've been given from another council. There's some points on here that I just made up as I was going on, that we can tweak. But what do you think, Dave?
We're really thinking of the budget of 120 to 150,000.
I think
That's like an awful lot of money.
that seems to be the number you'd be looking at for an all singing dancing hall, but the idea is that's entirely, not entirely anymore, largely grant funded. So the idea is you say, this is what we're doing, it's mainly coming from grants. And the idea was, when I spoke to the group, it would all come from grants, and now we have the possibility of that section 106 money that might go towards it, which might get us halfway there. But I made it very clear to them that it's not coming out of our budget, because we don't have 150,000 pounds lying around. On that basis, they were the ones that came up with this sort of wooden addition to what they have at the moment, the mini ramp, and go for a smaller one for training people to learn, and then go for a concrete one elsewhere. But again, it might take that takes long to come to fruition. So this is just signalling our intention at the moment. We send it out to people who might be interested and see what they come back with. But if no one comes back with any interest, then we'll go any further, I suppose.
I struggle to understand one of the map at the bottom. I'm just wondering if it's a formatting error, where the highlight, it's all shifted over. Or is that how it's meant to be? In which case it looks like they're trying to shift the whole,
Oh, yeah.
they're trying to shift the whole park into the.
No, we're going to shift it into the playground.
Yeah.
That's probably not ideal, is it?
No. I'm sure that's a formatting error, I hope it is, but if not, I'd just.
Or an operator.
Yeah,
I'll go with the first one.
okay.
It was a very neat line. Some of this happening in bulldozers.
That's what I think it's
Oh, we went off this map. Yeah, that wasn't Wales.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I thought, don't get cross about it.
No, do get it, because it's an error. It's an error. Yeah, no, I shall change that as well. Do we need to vote on anything?
Yeah, I mean, just say if you agree that we sort of move to the next stage.
So basically, we're just moving this out to tender. It's not committing ourselves to anything, but it starts the ball rolling with the big boys and see what they're interested in.
I thought I heard you say it's not moving out to tender, it's pre-tender.
It's moving into the next stage, which is anyone interested in looking to help us? If the answer is no, then that's the end of it.
Yeah.
So are we all nodding in agreement with that? Yes. Yeah, we're okay with that? Lovely. Terms of reference for the climate change working group, they're very simple. The idea is that decisions can be made through email conversations like they are on the comms group at the moment. And hopefully opening up to transitional and members of the local schools and youth groups, scouts, schools, PWS, etc., etc. Whether anything comes from those bodies, who knows? The idea is to keep it simple and keep it linked. There's no powerful decision-making ability or anything like that, so everything comes back to full council, but it can just be a bit of a month on month.
Just because it's a pet hate of mine,
Mm-hmm.
would it be possible to change chairman to chair?
I'm going to change on the original document. I saw that and I was aghast with myself. I apologise. I've been calling these chairs for years.
Yes.
I had to
I was very
beat
surprised
myself.
to see it.
I was horrified.
Horrified.
I was horrified with myself. I would have punished myself. I'm sorry. I thought I'd get through it. It made me publicly. Yeah, so if everyone's
I was
happy
gonna
with the
say
change of chairman to chair, which clearly should be correct, we're happy to adopt it. We need to approve this, don't we? I'm happy to propose it. And so just going to second it. We're all happy to go ahead with it with that change of chair
So what, are you changing it to chair?
to chair, from chairman.
I hate chair.
It's come from the council. You just have a little picture of an empty chair.
You've got a picture of three.
They're damaged. We don't damage it. Thank you very much indeed. 21-10109, request from Craig Randall for use of the marketplace for the food festival on the 18th of June. Are we generally happy with this? Yes.
Looks good to me.
I've raised my perennial issue about having in the middle of the working week has to be in the room.
I was going to ask,
Okay.
because they've asked, we have in the past charged £600 for people, other groups to use the marketplace. And I don't quite understand why we do that. Because,
Why we charge them?
yeah, because we have the rights to hold a market there on a Thursday and a Saturday. But any other time, on the second Saturday of the month, it's a public highway.
It's not ours, is it?
We don't own that, and it doesn't cost us any money if somebody applies for a road closure to hold an event. So I don't understand why we charge people.
I think the reason that we've done that is in the sense to protect the market rights that we hold.
Yeah.
We can stop people operating commercially, can't stop them using it as a highway, but we could stop any kind of trading going on there. So that if anybody wants to do anything that is akin to trading, they have to seek our blessing and in effect pay our fee if we choose to charge it. But that's the way I've always understood the rationale.
Yeah, we have market rights over it, don't
Yeah.
we?
But if you give the food festival or Creative Handle permission to use it, I don't see why you then.
Does £600 give you any greater control? than
Yeah.
that? If they always have to ask for permission,
No, if they're
then you're
not
controlling
on
that.
it.
Well, I suppose the other side of it is, not only do we have to go through the permission and the decision to grant it, I suppose putting an economic value on it makes sense. And it's a source of income to the council.
Yeah.
And since people have been prepared to pay it in the past,
And we
why
clear
don't they
it,
want
we
to stop
clear
it?
it up.
But they've in the past applied for a grant for it, for that amount of money, and then we've given them the grant. I just don't understand why it happened.
Who have we, is this sort of some of the market groups we've had in the past?
No, this is just the only person that I've known get charged is the food festival. We didn't charge the vintage fair. But in the years that I've been here, we've given a grant to cover the £600 that we charge them to use the
Is that
market.
anything to do with waste?
Sorry?
Is that anything to do with waste disposal or anything
No.
like that? No, so it's not because of that.
Usually with these sort of things, you find they're there for a very good reason, which has since been forgotten.
Yeah, I just don't know
Once-
where
once
that
we remove
reason-
it,
yeah.
discover we wish we kept it.
Perhaps, not getting bogged down with it tonight. Push this off into estates, ask them to come back to full council to, having looked at it, with a recommendation, whatever that recommendation might be. And then at least, any decision going on from that point has a rationale behind it, because it's either a rationale for doing something or not doing it, and so on, at least it'll tidy it up.
I have to say, over the years, it's been very useful to have the market rights
Absolutely.
control. I wouldn't
So
give it
is-
up for anything.
Is the argument there?
We're not giving up too
Well,
much.
I don't know why
Yeah.
that gives people rights.
But is the
Well,
argument
it establishes the right that it
we
can't.
defend?
Yeah.
Maybe we should say to Creative Animal, yeah, we're happy with the 18th of June, if that's when we're going to go ahead. And we'll confirm
Reserve the right to
Any-
charge them.
charge once we've.
It'll make up for them charging, for their, keeping the money for charging, for letting their cars go on the wreck for the last event.
But at the moment, yeah. Is it worth seeing if we've got any paperwork on how?
Well, it was,
It's years ago.
I have no clue when this
It'll be
decision was
done
made.
Just in this time,
Yeah.
it's different.
Glenn will remember.
It's certainly as long as I can recall, which is now 35 years.
Yeah.
I can't
Maybe it
recall
was charged.
it not being done
Yeah.
in that way. I mean, it may be that for some reasons it slipped and it hasn't been done, but that's not been a policy decision.
Correct. I would agree.
Because the policy was to maintain the rights and
Definitely.
in effect charge people for
Do some research on it, see what everyone else does. There must be a reason if that's the case.
Well, I wonder whether in the past, maybe we applied for road closures, and so there may have been some sort of admin work that we did, but everybody applies for their own. I mean, the only people that I know that have used it are the vintage fair people that we didn't charge. Food festival we have charged, but then given them a grant. But the one that they held last year, we didn't charge them
And then the.
because it seemed silly to charge them, and then they apply for a grant and we
For
give
the
them.
markets and things like that, we've put on, so we're using our rights to put markets on. Okay, well, I'll do some research and see if there's any reason, logic, legally, or whatever.
Yeah, and I'll talk to people who.
Yeah. But we'll say, yes, great man at the moment, and we'll confirm anything.
That I can go back and say we're happy for it to use it, so that they can apply for their road closure.
But financial matters, approve the bank reconciliation, balance sheet and budget for November 2021. Lots of money in the account. Any questions, queries, ideas, anything of that? All looks pretty straightforward, I think. Lovely. So can I have someone to formally approve? Yes, thank you. Seconding, let's all vote on that. Thank you very much. Payments for November 2021. Scheduled payments for November 2021 as presented at this item are paid. I'm happy to propose that unless anyone has any queries about any of the numbers. Anyone want to second it? It is. Everyone have a good vote on that? Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed.
Can we at some point, sooner rather than later, when we have an opportunity, just publicise how much we spend on our Christmas night? People think they're great, and they are, very impressive. You know, I had people say to me that they were more impressed with the lights in London than they were with the lights in London, but they're not cheap. And I think it will spark a discussion potentially, and if there is any dissent of the cost, the sooner we find out, the better. You know, make it clear, I think that it's good value for money, frankly.
No, I think it is actually. I've seen.
But I think that we ought to acknowledge the fact that that's quite a major part of our expenditure.
Okay. We can find some cleverly worded way of sticking it in the next advertisement.
Yes.
In some way, shape or form. Thanks for that.
Before you
Talk-
move on,
Mm.
finance then.
With some finance to come.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it wrong. For the age debtors, I meant to ask about this last week at finance. Because there's a couple that seem to be getting old. If I'm reading it right, period 3, I assume means 3 years, three months out of date, but maybe not, for the preschool, but I thought I'd seen that income come through. And Northamptonshire County, who obviously don't exist anymore, so that's the registrars by the look of it. They also seem to owe some money.
Yeah, registrars, that's period 2,
What does that mean? What does period 2 mean? 2 months out of date?
2 months, yeah.
Yeah,
So does that roll on? Or that's period 2 for the year?
I assume next month that'll be period 3.
Yes.
That's how I
Yeah,
present this, but I thought I'd seen the preschool come through, actually, it's income.
it might have, but it's
Yeah.
just not
Yeah.
come through on.
So this is from the end of November, isn't it, this one?
So,
Yeah. I got a bit baffled with some of that, and I sent Paul a question about, because the numbers seem different on this sheet to some other
I
one.
remember I did as well, and whatever it was I queried, he came back in due course and then said,
Yeah, it was the
That was last year's one.
grass verge cutting money, I think, that you, and that came in.
Yeah. I just got baffled, because some of the numbers on this didn't quite work out with another debt as well, so I haven't heard back from him.
well, certainly by the end of the financial year, you know, it would be nice to think that any debts have been chased in.
Yeah, they will be chased, and I mean, that registrar's one will be paid, but I would imagine that it's just stuck in their system of purchase orders and,
Yeah, the move to the new system
Yeah.
is going so well.
yeah.
Marvellous.
Okay, well noted anyway.
And I'll make a note to come back to it next time. 21-10203 to approve the budget and precept, which we went through last week. I think we've all had a copy, which I managed to lose, but everybody sent it, so I found it again. Lots of good stuff in it. Spending stuff on our estate, car park, at the house, putting money aside for the walls down in St Peter's. The Jubilee, something in the hub which sort of might hint at answering the letter we had from the residents about servicing needs for different age groups in Owl. Nod to the climate change and various other things, and a precept rise of 5%, I recall, with some money coming out of reserves to keep that.
Yeah, £42,375.
Yeah, I felt the same. I commended it to the house when we asked for a chance to so I can't. It was interesting that I saw something from Northampton saying they're going to go 2.99, I think they said. And then there's the police
Yeah, 10%.
question came around today, which,
2% one,
yeah.
because adults will be on top of that.
But I
That's
think,
the headline.
given what we're suggesting we can do with this, the money from reserves is reasonable, particularly if we have an underspend this year, and we're doing some good work with that money for next year. So, anyone any questions? It wasn't on the financing with the three of us were. That's how the room was. It feels like there's a divide, an apartheid in the room. Presumably we need to vote on this? Yeah. So there's no questions. I'm happy to propose it. Do I have to second it? Second it. Liz, sorry,
No,
this way,
no.
on the wrong side. Everyone happy to vote on that?
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed. And thank you to all those who spent so much time going through all the numbers. 21-102-04, received the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee on 14th of December, just talking about the budget. Any questions, queries on that? No, lovely. 21-102-05, received the Pension House Review and Audit Report. Again, a good read, I enjoyed it. I need to get out more, but I'll go back to work, one of the two. Boringly, I was wondering if we might look in the next year or so with our climate change type hat on, just seeing whether we could, do we have an authority to change where it's invested? Do individuals have that? I don't know.
Well,
how
we
that works.
use a company to look to see where, our best pensions are and how they're performing.
Because Aviva have various funds that avoid carbon and stuff like that. It might be worth looking, which I think grow pretty well. I'll have a look and see what there are, because they get excited about things like that. And just see if we can come up with anything.
It's one way that people can, by moving money in these ways, it does make a difference. It feels to me like the finance sector is really pushing the carbon neutralising agenda more than governments.
And it actually is
and
very
can make a
favourable.
genuine difference.
Yeah, it's very
So
favourable.
everyone who can make those small changes, I certainly, I'll do it myself. And, we really can.
I'll see if Aviva have some, because everything.
Or I could just go back to the pension house and
That would be,
say, this is what we're thinking. It would be easier to,
if they've got something. Just something, there's various funds that are deep green, which you may have to be quite hidden. And then there's just light green, where they say we're not going to invest in coal mines and things like that. And I know, I'm sure Aviva have at least a light green. And I know the growth is good. So let's see if they can come up with something. Thank you very much. To consider upgrading the phone system in Fletton House. This was an exciting discovery. Apparently in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, some years' time,
2025?
something like that, Openreach can unplug all the analogue phones for businesses. And our system, which is broadly based on analogue, then won't work anymore, which will be a problem. I'm trying to work out where our analogue phone lines go, but the recommendation from our present supplier is we start looking at a VoIP, voice over internet protocol thing, which I think VA are already. And in terms of flexibility and lots of other things, it's very good and very clever, and it might end up costing us less money. Good for the budget. I pricked up my ears listening to all of the stuff about phones going down in the northeast and problems with digital phones. And we thought, if we're an emergency centre, do we need to have an analogue phone? But apparently, in fact, and they did a big exercise here recently. They bring all their own communication systems.
No, I think for us, it's more about in our rooms, if we've got an analogue phone and something happened, and somebody hadn't got access to a mobile, then at least there was another phone for them to. But it's not necessarily for the emergency services.
So we don't need to have analogue left.
But I know that NNC requested it as part of their risk assessment for hiring our rooms.
An analogue phone. But at the moment, it's just whether we look at upgrading the phone system to one that's a bit more future-proof, maybe a bit cheaper, and maybe a bit more flexible.
Do we come as a business? Is that
Yeah.
right? I see.
In terms of Openreach, I think the idea is they want to get rid of as much copper wiring as they can to save money.
And when we put ours in, I didn't know that we were going to go into a lockdown situation. And we were all able to work from home, because you just get an app on your phone and you're on the system. It's fantastic.
It seems brilliant. And it seems very flexible and very straightforward, and our present provider.
Yeah, you can have it on your phone. I think each line, you can have it as a line in your office, on your computer and on your phone.
And it's cheaper and reliable. You've had no problems?
Well, someone went through the internet cables on an A road
But
at
apart
some
from that,
point, but the whole band went down, you know, half the band went down on their internet.
We had that little sort of problem here as well.
Yeah, we have, but that was open reach in the end, so.
So,
Understands.
we'll go back to Bath, is that right?
Yeah.
And see what they recommend and then come back with some
Get quoted.
recommendations. Brilliant. Planning matters, David, anything from the minutes of the planning committee on the 7th of December?
Somebody's got anything to ask, it's all in there.
No, any questions? Once again, lots and lots and lots to consider. Thank you for going through vast amounts of paperwork. All received it. Estates management, received the minutes from the estates management committee on the 3rd of November. Any points to raise? Liz, do you want to say anything?
I don't think so. I think these are all matters which I've spoken to you or has spoken to you about before, and it was very much focused on the budget and starting to build reserves against what is predictable in terms of maintenance, repairs and maintenance. So that was the biggest focus of the evening. So you've approved the budget, so if anyone has a query, I'm happy to answer it, but otherwise I think there's nothing very surprising in there.
Marvellous. Next one, to consider installing a tabletop drinks machine in the hub space. Do we need any, there's no technical stuff, we're just being asked whether we're looking at
I think we haven't specifically got a budget line for this, so there will be a cost involved in putting a coffee machine down there. But of course, there are costs associated, that were budgeted for the running of the hub, if you like. So it won't actually involve spending any more money than we kind of thought we would. I favour it being a pay, a machine you have to pay to get a drink from, but I was down there, we sometimes use it at BA for meetings, and you know the whole of the, I don't know if it was the ballet group or the Zumba or whatever, all came out and you know they were all sat around chatting like they used to do, because Emma had asked if that was okay, and you know we use it of course. And I just thought if there'd have been a machine there, they'd probably stayed longer, had a coffee as well, and it would have started to feel like some of the stuff that used to happen for such a small thing. And Emma's looked at some quotes, and I think it's Ian's pet person.
But it's because they're going to offer a short-term
Yeah, a
contract.
very short-term contract, because this is what I was afraid of. that-
Sorry?
That I taught someone history. Rather he's my pet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Think of the word.
Took us through a long time ago.
Yeah, so we favour that really, to just put it in, see how it goes, see how the hub develops under a manager, because it may be that a manager wants to run it as a cafe more than I currently envisage. But it may be that a vending machine is the right solution for 3-5 years, and then we'll take a different contract. But let's just get the concept up and running again. Ian has said people are still asking about it.
Yeah, I mean, questions a lot.
Yeah.
In this particular case, he's willing to give us basically the shortest term
Yeah.
we need to get us into the next financial year.
Yeah.
It's a machine probably similar in size or a bit smaller than the one that's in Waitrose. It just makes coffee and.
Yeah.
Would it
It's
be
very
would
simple.
it be a contactless card machine or?
No, once you start getting into stuff like that, it gets more complex.
Yeah.
He can put a little box on the side that you drop a pound coin in, that then it measures the.
Yeah, I mean, we
weight.
won't get any change.
No. Or a little stockage that's the same size as a pound coin that we can tell people. My suggestion, though I've been called, what do you call me, Mr. Freebie or something like that, is that in the first couple of months, we just, to save staff time and hassle and dockets, we just say there's a machine there, helps up if you want, and it's probably better overall and won't cost us very much. but we haven't looked at the details yet. But I think with contactless and Omni, what's it called, the idea of handling.
Oh, yeah, it's mainly just for use really. I don't think, I'm not sure people carrying pounds, coins in their pocket happens very much anymore.
Okay.
And the cost of adding a machine on the side is going to probably cost more than some coffee sales. But we can look at the detail.
I thought about waiting until we know what happens in the
I know
new year,
exactly, yeah.
just in case we're all locked down. Rather than, I'll go back to Katie I've spoken to and say, we're keen, but we may just hold back.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in us rushing in,
No.
having it, and then nobody can use it for a month.
Nobody's going to put it in before the new year anyway.
No, but even in January, I'm
Yeah,
just
we'll get
thinking,
half the
yeah.
last.
But in principle, I think that's super important question.
He was very keen to do what he could to get it in, but it just depends if the machine arrives from Italy on the back of a lorry.
Just having coffee.
Yeah, so who knows? Brilliant, but I think it's a great idea, and it's a sensible way forward to get a bit of life back if we're allowed our boxing day.
Tiny step.
Tiny step. Communications group, this is me again. I've put a report at the bottom of the mayor's thing. Some figures from the Love Animal website, which of course we are behind, and big jumps around the Christmas market. Certainly when I was in car park duty, I was delighted how many people didn't know anything about animals when coming to our not very publicised Christmas market. We weren't trying to get visitors to. But it was great, and they've seen it, and the number jumps up. The geographical spread, I put that down because I've got little stickers on my car which I've been driving around, and about 80 places I've been to are now appearing as places where people are using the Love Animal website. So I'm taking full credibility. It's so good. Mileage on the car. But it's nice to see. And, it's all about getting awareness on things as well. And the other point is the walking app that we got funding for from the Welcome Back Fund. We've been in contact with people. I've gone through the Heritage Trail.
Town trail.
The town trail, the one, the exciting architectural buildings, and I've done all the recordings just as a little trial. I did them in the wrong format, and now they've been changed to the right format today, so they're going to load that up and everyone can have a little play and see what we like and see what we think. But it's just a thing like a Love Animal walking app, and then we can add cycling apps.
Becca and Paul tested it out this afternoon
Do they like
on the phone.
my exciting comments about the anti-Euro?
But it seemed to work and it seemed good.
Okay, so again, that's just a little extra string to the bow that people can download if they want. And we'll get people walking around and hopefully businesses and stuff will tie into that. So it's all risk to nil, hopefully. And there's also a copy of the next stuff that's gone into the advertiser in January, which has gone early, which hopefully is positive and people like, and has in it the town meeting dates in April and the Jubilee dates.
Yeah.
Correspondence for information, the employment law update, the now Chief's bulletin, and Northants Count update. Nothing particularly exciting in any of those, I don't think. Right, and then lastly, any other relevant matter for report only? So, okay, Liz, anything from you?
I would like to consider the continued absences of councillors to meetings. And I accept that you have seen their reasons for apologies and have advised us to accept them. But I wonder if there is a point, let's say for whatever reason, if you've missed 3 in a row, that there's an expectation that the mayor would ask you what your commitment to the council is.
Do we have a policy?
No,
it's no policy.
I'm just interested in whether other people feel disappointed at the turnouts that we've had. And whether that's something that we should try and be a little bit proactive about.
I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but there's in the modern world, we just talked about the GDPR implications on there. If people are away for illness or absence, we can't.
No.
Yeah. But I think I think all of the ones I've seen are valid. And given we're 4 days from Christmas, so it's not really valid. But Yeah. no,
But the
it's-
meeting dates have been published well in advance. Everyone knew, they shouldn't organise anything else for the 21st. If their commitment is to Town Council, then they should consider what else they're going to put in their diaries that
But I
day.
think there are a number of issues today that aren't just diary based.
Are we allowed to know what these kind of issues are?
Illness,
Illness,
Illness and,
isolation.
Yep.
yes, I mean, that's.
Yeah, that can't be
it's
helped.
very much
lots
only
of them
about
are,
the
lots of them are obvious.
circumstances.
People are somebody's away on holiday, somebody's working.
Yeah.
And somebody is at the cathedral.
Yeah, there are 3 or 4 ones.
And the reason I'm saying
Your
it
point
is
is valid.
Working.
we have had experience in the past of people not attending meetings. And it is quite painful because we then have to decide what to do about it. And there are rules about it.
There are, if you
But
just
I
accept
think it's
apologies
exceptional
now.
at the moment with the COVID, isn't it? That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, if you accept apologies, then the 6-month
Yeah.
rule doesn't come into play.
Doesn't come into it.
No.
No.
Which is why I wonder if there's a point at which someone should have a word.
Maybe the point someone asks a question.
Yeah.
That's the point.
I think it's
But
tricky.
the other thing
It's
is
tricky
to
to do.
ensure that we have a full council, because we still haven't. How many vacancies are there?
I think it's tricky because you're a council that's not even running at full capacity at the moment.
Yeah,
So it makes it difficult. But then if you've got people, I mean, of those people that aren't here tonight, I wouldn't say that they're regular attendees.
I would agree.
I think in full council terms, they are.
Your commitment
I
to
think-
David is as well.
Well, it's just relative to past experience. I would have to say that I tend to agree with the clerk that the peasant group is not noted for having persistent absentees, I would have said. I mean, having been one of 5 councillors that had to operate this council for a period of time,
Yeah.
when in order to be quorate, all of us had to attend everything.
When I
Everything.
started, I think you were only at 7, weren't you?
And we ensured that not one meeting got cancelled, as far as I
Correct.
recollect.
And not
during that
one
period.
service got.
And
But bear in mind, you did cut down, that we didn't have committees, we just had 2.
oh, absolutely,
meetings
yeah,
a
and
month,
we
yeah.
had to operate in a very strange way. But
Yeah.
the point I was making in a sense is that with commitment, councillors can achieve a hell of a lot, but it puts a disproportionate strain on those who are ensuring that they do everything. So I have a degree of sympathy about the situation. But I am prepared to say that it is 4 days before Christmas, in the middle of the pandemic. I can't say I'm unduly surprised tonight, but I would be pretty disappointed if the same faces were absent again next month and the month after. And then I agree, I think that's the time at which the mayor probably should be having a word in ears and pointing out that you can't necessarily just go on nodding through acceptance and apologies. If people are persistently not here and pulling their weight.
Yep, absolutely, point made, point noted. David, anything from you?
No.
Val?
No, nothing, thank you.
Jerry?
No.
Luke?
No.
Marvellous. Emma, nothing else from you?
Nothing else from me.
Marvellous. Thank you very much indeed. We didn't make 8:30, but we're relatively close. Thank you very much indeed to everyone for all of your hard work over the year. Thank you for the staff for all their hard work. And have a lovely Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Very nice.
Thank you very much indeed.